Hi, and welcome to Shhh the Talk Show. Did you know that when you watch the ads that pre-roll in completion before the episode, it helps us generate funding for our show? If you like what we do and you'd like to support us, please subscribe and share the channel with everyone you know. You can also continue learning about the subjects that we discuss by reading our column in the Sunday morning newspaper. There's a human manifestation of what a taboo is in society right now. Here she is.
Technically, I was a lesbian drug. Proud motherfucking metalhead.
Have you been in the trans?
Yes, I have. Of course I have. It's fucking awesome. Of course it's fuck the system kind of music.
Did you ever try satanism? There was a time when Natalie was a witch.
And it's a practicing addiction.
Have you turned back? So the thing about being Sri Lankan and being a Sri Lankan woman is that we kind of grew up being conditioned into this idea of what it is to be respectable and how a girl should behave and how we should sort of dress and talk and move and all of that, right? And many of us, we grew up in this kind of cultural norm of how we're supposed to live our lives and what makes us worthy as women. And I think this is problematic because it is obviously natural for each of us to have unique differences. For us to have our own tastes, our own wants, our own needs and our own preferences in our lifestyles. But somehow this country is just so unforgiving of things like that and so judgmental. So I think it is important for us as women, if we want to be supportive of each other, to start talking about this taboo of being a Sri Lankan woman and what is that exactly, and of being a woman, of being a human being with the right to be who we want to be. So that's why this episode is called Rebel Women. And I wanted to sit down and talk to someone who has broken those barriers and who's kind of, I think everything that is about conforming has been just shredded to bits. And she's someone that I've known for a long time, and Natalie Soysa. Thanks for coming. Today's conversation is happening at the very cool Cafe by Republic down Hospital Street. I've never been here before, but I definitely will be coming back here again. It's a very, very nice space. And I believe they have some good entertainment in the evenings, and it's a nice place to come with your friends and chill. And it's open during the day, and it's beautiful, and it's been perfect for this conversation, I feel like, and it's very comfortable. So thank you to Cafe by Republic for letting us use this space and being our location sponsor. We've not been close friends, but we've been in each other's lives, where I watched Natalie's journey from the time we just left school. We're the same age, right? And as soon as she left school, from who she was then to who she is now, I think there's been like, it's not even a arc or anything, it's like a mountain range. It's like an alpine mountain range of the various forms of netting that have happened over the years. And I've known Natty to never be what society considers normal. If there's a definition, if there's a human definition for what a rebel is, this is the one. So I thought it's very interesting to sit down and talk to Natty. Why I want to do this is because we are so judgmental as people, as women mostly. We look down on each other sometimes. If you don't behave the way I do, or if you don't conform to what my mother or my grandmother said is the right way to be a person, then I tend to, as society, what I would do is I would isolate you, stigmatize you, demonize you.
Yeah.
And so I want people to stop doing that, because I think a lot of our problems in society stem from the fact that we can't understand or accept each other's differences.
Yes.
You and I don't have to have the same lives, but you and I can like each other. I met you at a time where you were pretty much what we consider normal in society. The girl, the falling in love with the boy, the marriage, the wedding, that was when we started, right? started. But then, even then, I don't think you were completely comfortable with yourself.
No.
Yeah, I was.
It wasn't me, Shanuki. That was the first time to raise me.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to separate who I actually was and be comfortable with who I was and not give a fuck about what anyone thinks.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about being a rebel, it's about being authentic to yourself and not being fake.
And I think that's something that you have started showing the world what that is. And that might go against a lot of people's comfort zones or whatever.
It is.
So I just want to just talk about it's just to put it in a snapshot what I know of what you've done, and this is where I want to surprise everybody, because sometimes so I've seen you following the party lifestyle, and you've also had drugs in your life. There's been the drinking. I remember even back then, it was like you told me, I remember once I was scandalized actually, but when we were performing in, I think it's on Ice Cream or something, you said one day that you just went to a tavern in the middle of the night and you wanted to have a drink, and you went and sat and had a booze. So to me,
Even if it was by myself?
yeah, exactly. So to me, and it was like straight out of Catholic guilt. But then it went into there were drugs involved. Then there was I think the rock star lifestyle. That whole. You know how we think about it, right? In society, what is the rock and roll lifestyle, and then there is a lot of there's the nude photographs things that happened, and then there was a TED talk. The fact of the matter is that we don't think that women who lead your kind of life are women who can achieve, because we always teach our daughters that that's the loser kind of way to be. But you've broken that as well.
And I'm still standing.
Exactly, and you've led companies, you've been like a creative leader, you're a photographer, you're a writer, you've given TED talks,
I'm a mom.
you're a mom, but you don't compromise on what you want to be.
Yeah.
So tell me about Natalie's journey. How did Natalie get here?
How did I get here? By going up by step by step. You talk about this phase and my lifestyle and whatever. I've been willing to try anything else, and I think that's fair with my life.
Yeah.
I've tried it. If I like something, I stick with it. If I don't, I don't. It's that simple. And this idea around drugs, unfortunately, we tend to club happen drugs into one place, right? Personally, I don't consider marijuana a drug.
Yeah.
It's sure it gets you high, but it's not a drug. Otherwise, how with the market they are going to be putting it into the goodies and taboos that are prescribed to us when we go to see, right?
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know that.
It is. Marijuana is the base for most taboos and goodies and most kind of alternative medical solutions.
Yeah.
With the market, there's a permitted to go and have access through the government to a certain amount of marijuana. So I think we need to refine how we address marijuana, and I think I would like to take that out of the kind of realm of drugs. Drugs are what cocaine, marijuana, MDMA, and those are drugs. Those are chemically created things.
But you've tried all those.
I need to try everything once, and I have things. I have to have access to everything to try everything.
Okay.
So I've tried what has been accessible to me.
Right. How did that happen though? Because you were the Christian school girl.
Catholic school,
Exactly. So you and I have had pretty much the same background in that sense. But you decided to go your own way, where I always have felt trapped in these expectations, and then try to behave myself, try to maintain this image. A lot of us women feel that we have to behave. So what happened with you? When did you realize, okay, you don't want to behave anymore? How did your family feel about that?
These are conversations I have with my family.
Now it's a conversation
With everybody.
With everyone on YouTube.
I'm not quite sure where that transition happened. What I'd like to say is that, doing drugs is not something that governs your whole life. I'm not wasted 24/7. How do I raise a child, run a household without any financial support by myself? Do you think the idea, the identity that is attached to you with drugs is that you're wasted, that you're existing You have Hollywood has painted a picture for us around what a drug lifestyle is. Right? So that means I must be getting up and cutting a line and snorting it to be able to get out of bed in the morning. That's not who I am. Right? I have to raise a child, I have to do my job at work, I have to earn money. Marijuana does my everyday life because I don't consider it a drug. But you know, there is a difference between a drug addict and a drug user. Okay. And I don't think that society knows the difference because we've already had this kind of shroud painted over the term drugs. A whole kind of identity kind of attaches itself to it. And I don't associate with the Hollywood identity of drugs. Okay. It might be December Sunday and my friends might have some MDMA and we'll have a little bit and that'll be that. I'm not wasted 24/7.
Right.
I use drugs. I don't abuse drugs and I'm not addicted.
How is it possible though? Because like they say if you do use it, that the addiction is very easy to sort of
I think that is
drug is that it gets you addicted.
Sure. But that again we disassociate the person from the drug. Right? People have addictive personalities. And they could get addicted to people just as much as they get addicted to drugs. Addiction is a personal thing, not a drug related.
Okay.
Right? So, sure, down those paths you have seen the wrong people doing the wrong drugs and getting addicted. I'm sure I'm not even denying that drugs are taking people down that path. So that is why you differentiate between the user and the addict.
So how have you actually been able to avoid that trap?
It's never been a trap for me. I have never.
So if I were to tell you, okay, Natalie, if I were to challenge you, like don't take another drug, like for another 3 years, can you do that?
If there's no drugs available, then I don't do drugs. I mean, I've gone 2, 3, 4, 5 years after that I have not done anything.
Okay.
So it's not even a thing. It's not a challenge.
All right.
I like the experience that I don't like all the drugs anymore. So I will never try. There are certain things I do not do.
Okay.
So it has to work with me. I like psychedelics because it makes me imagine a world beyond the one that I live in.
Okay.
And that helps me create. I will have an MSc trip, let's say, one day. I will not leave out for the next 2 weeks. Because I use it as an experience. I've learned the difference between partying on drugs and using them for personal growth. And I've come out of, let's say, an LSD treatment, a far more awakened person, and that stays with me for 2 to 3 years. I'm not waking up the next morning and waiting for another trip. That's not how it works.
Yeah. So now, to me, like there's this inner auntie in me. It's not inner anymore. But it's like when I'm listening, my auto response is what I have been brought up to respond as like, oh my God, this girl is like, this is bad influence. She should not be allowed to,
Therefore, if I was abusing drugs to a certain extent and not taking care of my kids, I have responsibilities as a single mom. My question to everyone who takes this huge drug shot over me is, how the fuck do you think I'm sending him to school without anybody seeing? Paying his school fees, doing his homework, paying my house rent, continuing to work long hours into the day and night to keep the two of us going. Do you think that I can be wasted 20? Where can I find the money to do all of these drugs if I'm raising a child also, right? So it's on the person. You have to know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. If I had gone down a different path, my story might have been different for sure. Right?
So how does your family reconcile with
They don't.
this? Okay.
Oh, they don't. You were talking about how we don't like when somebody doesn't fit into the
box. Exactly.
The extreme level of that is that you will punish the person who doesn't fit into your box. You will start with the
judge, you will criticize, you will.
Right, you will get the lectures. You will not bother to have a conversation with this person about their experience and why they're doing this. Again, everything gets clubbed into this drugs, kind of big umbrella of drugs.
Yeah.
Right? And what I try to tell people is that I'm not drugged up when I smoke pot. For me, that's a huge different experience. But it's easy. If you smoke pot, it means you're doing a class on drug. Pot, marijuana and heroin cannot be separated, but they're such completely different things.
And then what about the drinking and the partying and the rock? Now I like rock music, Correct. You're like on another level of like rock music, and I know that you photographed all the bands, and you're kind of like part and parcel of that world. I like listening to some levels of rock, but what's that been like? It's for me, it's this perverse fascination. I want to know what that life is like because that's a life I never allowed myself to have because nobody else allowed me to have it.
Interestingly, because I don't like labels, I don't say I'm bisexual or queer or hippie or whatever the
That's
one.
the other part of nativity.
Loudly queer.
That's the other one I didn't touch on the fact that at one point you seem to be heterosexual when you got married. Okay, so I didn't know that. Then that was the image, okay? And then at another point it was like, okay, is Natty gay, is Natty bi? But then Natty had a child with men.
I mean, I've known from the time I was 15 that I was queer. I knew
Did you know how to like?
No, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
I didn't understand. It took me till my 20s to associate with queer communities and have someone help me kind of address that identity. What I'm saying is that, there are all those labels, but the one that I really and truly associate with for my identity is middle. Yeah, with so much fun.
And geek.
All of it
I
comes in and
remember like
around
the Marvel comics.
But all of it comes in and around that identity of middle. That's the one label that I can say defines.
Okay.
Right. Again, there is this media association with what a metalhead is, and then there is an actual identity.
Okay.
Right. Metalheads are queer people. The queer,
Are they all queer?
metalheads are queer people. They are understanding people. They are not judging.
Yeah.
Right? And that is why I associate with that label. In fact, unknown to most metalheads themselves in this country, the whole metal kind of leather visual identity that came with it comes from the queer leather daddy.
Queer leather daddy, that's like the first time I'm hearing that. That leather daddy. Leather daddy. That sounds so fun.
A leather daddy is kind of like a sub-identity within it.
Okay.
Lots of leather and knuckle dusters and there are special.
Okay, so the look.
The look. That look was taken into heavy metal from queer.
Okay.
From the queer community. So
Okay.
for me, a lot of the things that I associate with, identify with, it comes straight out of being a metalhead.
Okay. I didn't know that metalheads were queer.
That is not all metalheads.
Right, okay.
For me, a real metalhead is someone who understands all things, who isn't afraid to be themselves, who is understanding of the fact that the world is not alive and that they're okay with that. And for me, that is the actual soul of being a metalhead. And it comes out in the music. Of course, it's part of this kind of music. That's what it's about.
Yeah. And you've been sort of photographing them and sort of
Sure.
like kind of what's the word?
Chronicling.
Chronicling. That's the word. Chronicling.
Currently, co-authoring a book called 50 Years of Rock and Roll in Sri Lanka. So I've been part of it for almost 20 years. And it's been really interesting documenting and archiving this process that had started 20, 30 years before I ever heard
Yeah.
of it.
So tell me about your creativity, all the stuff that is it that, when you said you use marijuana, does that fuel your creativity?
I find myself very productive when I smoke.
Okay.
Finally enough. It's not always a recreational smoke for me.
Right.
When I'm really stuck on an idea, I find myself, having one joint and so I'm working for like 5-6 hours undisturbed and completely productive.
Yeah. And what's it like? So this life that you have, this creative out there, like no shame, the absolute. Are you happy?
I'm happy with her as other people are not. That's the
We're not talking about other people. We're talking about you, right? Which I want to know. Like, so you're perfectly fine, but now you have Lucas. You have your son. And the world is a cruel place. We all know that. So what is it like for you as a mom to understand that, okay, what the world says about you? Like, what are your thoughts on how Lucas can grow up in that atmosphere of having to deal with that world?
There's a part of me that wants to pack him up and get him to this country. Considering the things that I've had to face, just being myself, right? It's as simple as just being myself. I did a TED Talk in 2012, just a couple of months after I'd given birth. And when TED put it up on their YouTube channels and there were people went to the extent of creating fake YouTube accounts to insult. If you go to
because
the
you
gender
talked about
website,
homeschooling, right?
yeah, and already called me a druggy loser and I'm in no position to dictate things about creativity. And this is the point where I was the head of arts at the British Council. Of course, I'm in a position to dictate and talk about creativity and advocate for it in the countries, and there's a reason I was given that job. So hurtful that people have nothing else to do with their lives except to create Facebook accounts and create YouTube accounts just to go and insult.
Yeah.
If ever as a photographer, I love photographing the humans.
Yeah.
People like shooting trouble, people like shooting. For me, the human form has been my most kind of inspiring canvas to work with. I shoot nudes, but that doesn't mean I shoot porn on them.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't think Sri Lankans have really gotten down to how to
But
distinguish the two
they are
anyway.
okay to look at Renaissance arts of naked women, but not for it. Explain the logic.
And they're also okay to be the highest number of Google searches
For
porn. But if Natty photograph is the nude woman, oh my god.
Then yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'm over. It's not location that people have nothing else to do with their lives than to go out of their way to reprimand somebody else for not fitting in a box.
I agree.
And this has gone to extreme levels for me where people have quoted me to the Child Protection Authority as a druggie and as a lesbian mother who sells her child in exchange for drugs to her gay friends. Deal with the insults that are thrown at me. You don't fucking care. There is a line I draw there. I'm actually very forgiving of people, but if you hurt my kid, then say it's a no.
Okay, I'm just gonna play devil's advocate, right? Because I want to have this conversation with you and I want to be as open with you as possible. Do you feel that when you are in a way when you do smoke the pot and when you do take the drugs and when you are drinking and all that, do you feel that you also could be hurting your kid?
Do you think
by normalizing?
He's not around if I'm getting high.
Right.
Do get a rare nights off from my kid. Mother needs a night off.
Right. Okay.
And this is, if I'm going to have a drink or go out or whatever it is, I use my nights off to do so.
Yeah.
Because the rest of my days and nights are governed by being first and foremost being a mom, because there's homework to do.
Yeah. Are you high by now?
Do you think I can be? I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
And then, like I said, that drugs are concerned, it has to do with me.
Yeah.
And this is how I am. Like I said, being whatever else, I'm second to being a mom.
With your circle of friends, right? Obviously, these are people who embrace you for who you are and who are unique in their own style. And they are also the village that is bringing up Lucas with you, right? Because I know you have such strong, amazing friendships that, they're all bringing this child up. So, again, he is exposed to that life, that non-conformist lifestyle. Are you worried?
Non-conformist lifestyle, yes. But there is a difference to a non-conformist lifestyle and this so-called druggy lifestyle. The difference for me is that I started doing whatever it is that I'm doing in my late 20s, I'm 40.
Yeah.
Right? And that came with a certain level of life experience. And it wasn't me as a 15-year-old guy lost in a gutter on the road.
Is it are you not worried for Lucas that he might do something because if that's what he knows and then he might not be in control like you were?
I'm less worried for him than I was for myself.
Okay.
Right? So here's the other thing. Because of this whole narrative around drugs that we have in society, is considered something very taboo.
This is why you make the show.
Because it's taboo. You want to do something that you're not supposed to. Lucas is not raised in a family where everything is taboo. There are limits to everything. There are rules and regulations. He's an 8-year-old boy. But the general life in which we live is about conversations and talking about friendships. And I'm hoping that friendship that I'm fostering with him will take him to a point where if he just want to try something out, he will talk to me about it. I'm the mom who's tried things. I'm the mom who's knows it. I'm not the mom who needs to hide that from. So it will be completely different for him. It won't be a taboo that he needs to experiment.
Or that he needs to rebel against. But what would your advice to him be though? Being the mom and not being
there has to be.
So there are choices you make for you, and then there
For
are choices
sure,
you want
for
for
sure.
yourself.
I mean, my conversation is that there's an appropriate age to try things. And for all the rebelliousness about me, there's certain things that are very, very old-fashioned. And I think that with a lot of things in adult life that kids and teenagers want to try out, there is an appropriate time for it.
But how do you protect it from the world that doesn't understand or that refuses
This is
to
my
understand?
This is my when I want to pack him up and run away. Right? Because there's something, no matter how much dialogues we have about this, no matter how much awareness there are around marijuana or queer issues or whatever, we continue to remain very judgmental, and I feel that it goes against our relations. Human beings to be so close that we're supposed to be naturally cute as beings. And that seems to have been kind of cut off as a result of all of these traditions we have put in place to keep us limited inside some kind of box.
I get that.
And that worries me because I don't want him living in that world. I have hated living in this context. My own decisions have been to keep my circle small and with people that I can completely relate to. And I'm hoping that that's what his adult life will be like too. I don't know what life will be for him. I don't know if I will be around for a lot of what life will be for him. So yes, I worry every day.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. What the curveball that life has thrown at you now, this time. The latest mountain, which is you just discovered you have cancer.
Yeah, so I'm not born for rebelliousness.
Although the look,
I hear I'm blocking it, but I'm not so sure.
and the look adds to the whole story. I mean, it's just a matter of time.
Yes, so in early May, I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. I'm in the middle of chemotherapy, which I'm not sure is the right treatment for me, but it is the legitimized, accessible treatment for me. So yeah, that's my latest curveball.
Yeah, and that is a curveball that you are not in control of.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
every other choice you're making, whether it's healthy or unhealthy, is your own. But this is one that's, so what's that like?
You're constantly confronted with your mortality. In certain senses, I find it a gift. In other ways, very much curse, because I don't know if I'll be around to see my kid grow up, and I will be dependent and that stuff.
But I think with your spirit and the kind of convictions that you have, I don't doubt that this is, if there's anybody who can be this, it's probably.
If there's anything that can break my spirit, I'm thinking that this could be it too. I've not had as many bad days and all the other experiences in my life as I've had on this. I'm going through clinically induced depression. There are days I wake up and I'm wondering what a bloody hell am I entering to this treatment, and can I just go in peace? Can I know if I have a year, let me have that great year to spend with my son, finish up the things I'm doing with my life, and to go in peace. But having said that, who's going to take care of me? I don't trust anybody else to raise him.
Yeah.
Certainly not the way that I'm raising.
Because again, I think cancer is a taboo, right? It's a part of the taboo, and the fact that you come packaged with all the taboos in one nice starter package. We chatted about this when I asked you if you'd be on the show. We chatted about this, and then do you find that the fact that you now have cancer makes society more forgiving towards you?
No.
No.
Certainly not.
Alright. Because I would have imagined that everything that people were demonizing you for studying, it would be like poor Natalie. No.
Certainly not. And if there is a poor Natalie, I will reject that. Reject that kind
And how
of
are you dealing with all the PT?
Yeah.
That's why I asked you about all that overload of PT.
I am rejecting the pity as it comes. The the fake oh, Nettie has cancer, let me get the calculator and all of these things that let me help. That kind of help is not fucking with coming. I keep myself too small and I will continue to keep this. Yes, there are a couple of more people helping me out than there have always been. Because I need more with childcare right now. I go through really bad touches after chemo treatment. I can't take care of myself. One kids asking for help and other kids can handouts and anyway. But I'm learning that this disease is something I can far less control of than I've had with other things in life. And I need the extra help.
And what's the extent of the cancer?
It's metastasized. So it started in one breast and it started to my armpits, my lymph nodes in my neck and my thyroid. So it's not good. It's not trying to avoid pushing to verify this time. It's something that I'm confident about. Something that I wake up with and it's my daily.
But you told me not to call it alternative, but would you consider other forms of medication that maybe the world doesn't approve of?
They have to be accessible to you, right? So that's my argument with alternative medicine. We use the word alternative and automatically that form of medicine loses its legitimacy. The moment we slap that word alternative onto it, it becomes a secondary thing to something else that's right. So we have accepted the colonially brought down form of medication as the legitimate form. As a result, far less research goes into these alternative forms of medication. Far less thought goes into it, far less information is available out there, and that's not okay. Right? Any illness has various forms of treatment, and they should all be equally accessible to you. They should all be, the knowledge around it should also be available to you. Right? In addition to my chemo, which I still, with every treatment, I don't know if I'm going to do this chemo, so that I'm going to be going through my treatment this summer. I'm seeing a homeopathic doctor who has been giving me a lot of natural supplements. The treatment that I would like to be trying out is marijuana. CBD oil. There are so many variations of this product that you could take that have shown to cure or minimize or support. There's a reason cancer patients are prescribed a certain amount of smoking marijuana in the US and Canada. Because it actually helps you with your side effects, with your nausea, with your appetite, your way to even eat something. I can tell you, chemo is not pleasant. And you are supposed to keep yourself nourished and healthy during this process, and it's not very easy if you don't have something that keeps you hungry or keeps you kind of like sane in like this. Unfortunately, in terms of it being a cure, I don't have access to it in this country, right? So I'm going to tell everybody who smokes pot, smoking pot does not cure you of cancer. Let me be very realistic. That goes into your lungs and comes out. If smoking pot cured me of cancer, I don't have cancer. So I'm very aware. You need to be eating, like with our indigenous systems. You need to be eating in certain quantities, and in the quantities that you need to be increasing every day for it to be able to actually be, an anti-carcinogen, for it to shrink your tumors, to prevent your cancers from growing. How am I going to access this quantity of things in country when marijuana is illegal? And that's very frustrating for me because our government seems to be growing a few hundred acres of medical marijuana to export to the US and Canada.
Are they actually doing that?
Yeah. I can send you there's several articles on this, not just written by Sri Lankan people. It's interesting that the Sri Lankan government has invested money and land in growing medical marijuana for other markets. The societal association and the legal associations around marijuana have to do a lot with our traditions and our culture. So if it's is it culturally appropriate to grow medical marijuana for other cancer patients? Is my question. Why the fuck can't I access? I am a cancer patient. Yeah. Why the fuck can't I access my own medication? Why is my government healing cancer patients in other countries and not me?
Yeah.
There are 25,000-30,000 new people diagnosed with cancer every year in Sri Lanka. And these people are only given access to one form of medicine. And there's something really fucked up. And to change it, we need to start pressuring our governments. How many more people are going to do this without access to medication, without access to the range of medication available to this disease that even Western medicine doesn't really have a complete hold on? Chemotherapy is not a cure for cancer, it is a treatment. It is alternative or otherwise, if these are considered treatments for cancer, this should be accessible and available to you. I'm not asking for free corpus, I'm asking to be able to access certain marijuana in a certain form so that I can ingest it and hope that it helps me. Anyone I have spoken to about cancer, I'm only talking to people who have cancer or have cancer because nobody else really understands the experience. None of them purely cure. There are a range of other alternatives that were put together with it. So those of my friends who have been cured of cancer don't really know which of the treatments helped. If you are on chemo and marijuana, on homeopathic treatments and Ayurvedic treatments and all of these at the same time, which one of it cured you? So that's really
What about all the other intoxicants and all that? Do you have to stop all that to keep the body clean, right?
I mean, I haven't had any other intoxicants in my body, but really I do everything. I tried having a beer at night. I can't seem to drink any like strong alcohol anyway, so maybe a couple of glasses of wine a few times a month.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean it hasn't like affected me. It's
Okay. Have to deal with anyone like being nasty about this, like, oh, this is punishment or something.
Of course, I had religious fanatics again happening to, your who are turned back to Jesus and I'm not even sure how to. Who said I went away from Jesus?
I want to now explore spirituality, right? Because there was a time where the blessed bees were happening and you were following the Wiccan.
I still see.
So there was a time when Natty was a witch.
That is still is. That is
a
Wiccan. Let's say I just don't
She's
have
still
the
practicing Wiccan.
Of course,
Okay.
if someone wants a reading, they can come to me and I will still do a tarot card reading. I'm reading palms. I don't have. Being a mom has limited my ability to do everything, including being religious.
So what is Natty's spiritual journey? What was that like? There was the Catholic.
My spiritual journey is that I have not shed anything as I have, gained other things. A lot of people think the virtue is decorative, but it is representative of the third eye, and I think to a great extent, spiritually, politically, in every sense, I relate to Hinduism a lot. It doesn't mean I am no longer the Christian that I was raised to be. It doesn't mean I am any less a Wiccan. It means that I'm fuller, spiritually fuller with so many belief systems that I have taken the time out to understand.
Yeah.
And I just think we've understood the same God from so many different perspectives.
Why I think that's really interesting is because that's also part and parcel of how we become judgmental as a society. That when we kind of follow one religious practice or one doctrine, whichever it is, right? Whether you're Christian, Buddhist, we have this whole fundamentalist attitude towards it that this is the law, these are the rules, and nothing beyond it is possible. So now for me also, I've grown up with a mother who practiced Buddhism for most of her life, a father from a very staunch Catholic background. I went to an Anglican school, so there were like conflicting messages here and there, right? And I found that for me, it's been not as much as you, but I've borrowed from the best of everything that I feel that works for me, right? And then I've had my best friend who was a Muslim, is a Muslim, so I've drawn from that. I've read up so much about ancient religions, which I find super fascinating, paganism and all. So I formed my own brand of spirituality that works for me. I believe in a God and I believe in Christ, but I don't have to. But then I also have that whenever I have these conversations, there are people in the family or the staunch Catholics like, no, that is not how the Eucharist works, It's like, but what does that matter? If the Eucharist works in one way for you, it works in a different way for me. And it's pretty much what your life is also, right? This whole try everything and do your own thing.
Settle into what works for you. I mean, I'm dogmatically attached to no things. And that doesn't make me any less of a believer. And I think religion is such a personal relationship with your belief system that no one should be allowed to interfere with how you believe and how you commune with a higher being. That's your bloody business.
Yeah.
That's your personal relationship with someone. It's just like people come to quote their roses in people's marriages. It's not wrong. It's just not wrong. These are personal relationships we form and we have, including with our God.
Did you ever try Satanism?
No.
I just asked you, like the weekend thing happened. So it's one and plus metalhead, rock and roll, you know, that would be like the next logical step would be that.
Metalheads don't kill cats on stages, it's just.
But that is why people really, right?
Detach this whole Hollywood attachment to certain concepts.
Yeah, yeah.
That is not what being a metalhead is. For me, being a metalhead is the most open, understanding person on the planet.
I get it, but you know that is the brand image is that, right? The demonic thing is the ritualistic version, the rock lifestyle, like the devil is a big part of it.
Do I look very satanic to you?
No, not really. It's pretty colorful. But that is what we are exposed to, and so that is what we form our opinions around. Yeah.
And it comes attached with a lot of hypocrisy because these rules that you want to adapt to somebody else about how to follow their religion, you are not entirely able to follow yourself.
Yeah.
But these happen behind closed doors, so there's no one there to police the person who's policing you.
So we went into spirituality, now let's talk about sexuality. So yes, you've identified as queer, being out there, and I've seen photos that you have published of yourself in.
I have a tattoo on my back that expresses my queer identity.
Right.
Something about some 50 years ago.
Okay, so you're in a relationship now.
Yes, I am.
Okay. And then how does that sort of, how does everything else about you work in that relationship? Like all your other
If I won't be able to be in a relationship if my identity didn't fit with the person I was seeing. And if you can't accept me for all of who I am, I can't be with you. I suppose in the same way I need to accept people in my life for who they are. I think it works because there's so much acceptance. It's not about I don't tolerate this version of you, but I accept it because I love you. That's not how it works. I love you for all of in your beauties.
Yeah.
That is not
But how has the world been to you about those choices also? Like forget the drug now, it's about
technically, I was a lesbian.
Yeah, I read an article about you that said lesbian.
So
So that's like, okay, so you're nice to women.
Natty has always been into people.
Yeah.
She finds interesting and
Okay.
whether it's a trans person or a man.
Have you been with the trans
Yes, I have.
Is it good?
I have. It's fucking awesome.
Cool.
I fall in love with people's minds and what is between their legs is irrelevant.
Yes.
You use what you find between their legs in a sexual act.
Yeah.
But it's irrelevant what is there. It's about falling in love with a complete being. It's about falling in lust with a complete being, and that's what matters to me.
Yeah.
I can't be with a man who passes, snide comments about those things. They don't need to speak with me and say those things.
Okay.
That's simple. Yeah.
Just watching the stuff you do, the fact that you are so okay with who you are, which is something, quite honestly, I've never been okay with who I am. Because I've always felt like I'm playing a role, which I think everybody else also feels. You are trying to live up to expectations, that because you don't want to disappoint your father, you don't want to disappoint your mother, then you've been told, be respectable because the way your family will be looked on, the way so you have that sense of responsibility, that pressure of the duty and then when you go into the world and you want to make a name for yourself, there are those social expectations where your job, how your workplace will look at you, the kind of success you are allowed to have. Because if you're controversial in any way, then you're also compromising on opportunities.
Yeah.
You have managed to achieve whatever you wanted to achieve. You've kind of created your own path. You've done all of this while still not conforming to anybody's expectations of how society should be. But now that you've come to a point in your life where you're struggling with this uncontrollable disease that you have, are you taking stock? Are you thinking about things? Do you have any sort of regrets in life? Do you have?
I regret nothing.
That sounds
in
like a
fact,
cat meme, I saw. Like a cat who had a piece of pizza and I regret nothing.
in fact, it's making me even braver and even bolder and even more determined to be myself in this process and not now.
Okay.
But I didn't know it well. I feel that I was here to do certain things and I was on a certain path. I'm fighting for gender rights, I'm fighting for queer rights, I'm speaking out against marijuana legalization. Not for recreational purposes, of course, not for recreational purposes, for medical purposes. And I'd like to keep doing as much of it as possible if my time on this earth is far more limited than other people's.
You have the support you need or the tribe you need to continue that work.
To a great extent, yes, I have amazing people in my life, which I'm so happy for.
Yeah.
I've been very much of a recluse, and like I said, I've kept my circle small. But in that circle, I'm an amazing individual, and I would be who I am if I'm someone.
Okay, so Lucas.
I everything tried, but tried with a certain, maturity. You know yourself. The ancient Greek motto, right? Know thyself.
Yeah.
Self-knowledge, I think, is the path to all wisdom. And we can't master anything till we know who we are.
Do you know who you are?
To a great extent. And I think
Because I'm like, who are you? Because you're so many different things. Just like you're so multifaceted. So who are you? Who is Natalie?
Natalie is a metalhead. That's what
Natalie is a
metalhead.
metalhead.
Natalie is a metalhead. Proud motherfucking metalhead.
My thing is, again, this show is the slogan of this show is talk about the taboos, right? And if there's a human manifestation of what a taboo is in society right now, here she is. And I say that with a lot of love. Okay, I don't say it in a bad way at all. But we're talking about it because it's important for us to understand it takes all sorts. And the whole "don't judge a book by its cover" is this massive message that I want to give out because. This is pretty much that you can never actually judge somebody for who they are or what their spirit is or what value or contribution they bring to the world simply because of the choices that they make in their lives.